It's not a secret that Vegas has access to certain information that we just do not have. And while they're not overtly telling you that you should be drafting these players, they are definitely trying to tell us a story based on those projections that they are offering on Vegas right now on some of these players that we shouldn't be overlooking in 2025 fantasy football. So I'm going to do my best to tell those stories of those players. Just make sure to go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support if you get value from the video today, because this is an interesting format right here, because I don't typically look to Vegas for my fantasy football decisions, but I do actually see a lot of players on this list that I'm going to go through today that I'm kind of reconsidering whether I should be drafting. Starting out with our first wide receiver, which is Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is a guy that I've taken some of, I've not taken too many times, but I definitely think I'm going to start taking him a little bit more, only because his projected stat line, receiving yards wise, according to DraftKings, is 925.5 receiving yards. Now, the tough thing about this one in particular is we do not know who the Browns quarterback one is going to be. Literally, it could be any of the four. It could easily be Joe Flacco. I think that'd be their best bet, but I'm not the one making decisions there. And they've already discussed, the potential of maybe trading him away before the season even starts. Then we've got Kenny Pickett as an option. I think that's the worst option of the bunch, but hey, they traded for the guy and they said that he could be the guy. Then you've obviously got Dillon Gabriel, who they drafted in day 2. And then you've got Shedeur Sanders, who, by reports in camp, looks like the best of the bunch, maybe outside of Joe Flacco. So this is completely weird to not even have the slightest idea of who the quarterback one is going to be for the Cleveland Browns. Now, the spoiler alert is that it could be a lot of different quarterbacks that Jerry Jeudy realistically has to deal with in 2025, because maybe they start out with Joe Flacco. Maybe he starts underperforming. Maybe they switch to Dillon Gabriel. Maybe they switch to Shedeur Sanders if he's not playing well. It could be a lot of different combinations. But he is the wide receiver 37 on Yahoo and the wide receiver 33 on ESPN right now. So theoretically, if he could hit 925 receiving yards or greater, then that's a pretty big value there that you're going to get on ESPN, on Yahoo, and on Underdog as well. He's around that range too. And the other thing I think that's really compelling about this, and again, I think this is where Vegas is trying to tell us a story, is that Garrett Wilson, a guy in fantasy football who is basically a top 15 wide receiver everywhere you're going to draft, he's got the same exact receiving yards line on DraftKings, 925.5 receiving yards. It's the same exact odds right there for Jerry Jeudy that it is for Garrett Wilson, who is going several rounds in front of Jerry Jeudy. Zay Flowers, a wide receiver one on his team, is at 900.5 receiving yards. Then you've got really good wide receivers, one we think could be good, but two guys who have proven it for years, just 25 yards over him. Mike Evans, Davante Adams, Marvin Harrison Jr. at 950.5 total yards receiving. So I think the bottom line that Vegas is trying to tell us is this right here, is that Cleveland is definitely going to be a tire fire. There is risk involved in this Vegas pick were you to pick the over for Jerry Jeudy. But from a fantasy football perspective here, at his current draft value, he should not be actually going that much lower than Garrett Wilson, then Mike Evans, then Davante Adams, or even Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that he's being underpriced, and I think Vegas is kind of thinking the same thing if they were actually looking at fantasy football projections and where they're being ranked in fantasy drafts. Like I said, I'm not super in on Jerry Jeudy. I think I'll draft more of him on Underdog in all likelihood. But would I go out and say that I'm confidently grabbing him as my wide receiver 3 in redraft leagues? No, I wouldn't say that. Now, the next wide receiver that we're going to get into today is someone I've been screaming about for a lot of the offseason. It's Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle, his stat line projection on Vegas as well through DraftKings is 925.5 yards as well. Same as Jerry Jeudy's here. Now, again, I've been discussing this issue for the whole offseason. Before I even knew where Vegas had Jaylen Waddle statted out projection-wise, I've been telling you guys, Jaylen Waddle is a really good value pick in fantasy football this year. And I've said it a lot. Jaylen Waddle, I think, is going to be a better wide receiver in fantasy than Tyreek Hill. Now, Tyreek Hill I've discussed on several occasions being on the outside looking in, for research that I've done over the past 10 years of wide receivers and when they hit the age cliff. Now, Tyreek Hill has obviously had 6 seasons inside the top 12 of fantasy football finishes at the wide receiver position. But what you can see a part of that research is that wide receivers who end up having a bad season and falling outside the top 12, well, they can recover and have a second run. Tyreek Hill just ended his second run. No wide receiver since 2014 has started a third run. So there's a big unlikelihood that Tyreek Hill is a top 12 guy again, which is where you're having to draft him. That's the problem. And if you really want to know something, Tyreek Hill, what do you think that his Vegas projection is on DraftKings? What do you think? Like 1,100 yards maybe? No, it's 50 yards higher than Jaylen Waddle. 975.5 receiving yards. What Vegas is telling you is that they're not confident that Jaylen Waddle won't be the better wide receiver than Tyreek Hill this year on the Miami Dolphins, which is what I've been saying a lot. Does that make my claim a little bit more credible to some people? Because I know that people do look to Vegas for fantasy football. I personally don't as much, but this video is for those types of people because I've been saying this all offseason. Now, Jaylen Waddle, you could get him at a wide receiver 32 price point on Yahoo, wide receiver 29 on ESPN, and on Underdog, by the way. So this guy, if he ends up hitting and finishing as a better wide receiver in Miami than Tyreek Hill, it's going to be a tremendous value for you. This one, I'm completely on board with taking, and I think Vegas is kind of backing my claim up a little bit here. Now, moving on to running backs here. I want to start out with Jonathan Taylor because I think I could keep it pretty short, but I also find it really interesting. So Jonathan Taylor, I've seen a lot of people starting to fade him during the 2025 offseason and saying that he's probably not going to be a great pick when you consider who's going around him. You've got running backs like Chase Brown going around him, Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving. Those are the running backs that are typically going around him as he's the running back 7 on Yahoo and the running back 8 on ESPN. So it's not like he's being priced super low. But I think what's interesting here is that when you look at DraftKings and Vegas odds in general, DraftKings actually has him as the 3rd highest projected rushing total winner at 1,200.5 yards. Like, that's actually pretty crazy because when you think about the Indianapolis Colts this year, there's no secret there's quarterback issues. It's probably going to be Daniel Jones, but it could be Anthony Richardson at some point during the season as well if Daniel Jones either A, doesn't win the starting job, or B, isn't playing good and they have to make a switch. This is why it's actually interesting to look at the Colts' projected win totals, according to Vegas, which is at 7.5 total wins. Now, other teams around that area are the teams like the Las Vegas Raiders. You've got teams like the Atlanta Falcons around them. So these are like middle to bottom tier teams in the NFL. It's very unusual to have a 1,200 plus yard rusher on one of the bottom like 7 or 8 teams in the NFL. That's usually pretty unusual, which is, I think, what makes it really interesting here. Because I've actually been on board with Jonathan Taylor as a fantasy value in drafts for the majority of the year. I don't think that I've had much of a problem with Jonathan Taylor. But Vegas is definitely telling you here that he has a legitimate possibility of being one of the leading rushers yet again in all of the NFL. Now, moving on to our next guy, it's going to come out of left field. You will never guess who I'm about to discuss right here. It's a Cincinnati running back. It's not Chase Brown. It's Taj Brooks. Taj Brooks. Now, people who are doing best ball drafts and are in the weeds about rookies, they know who Taj Brooks is. Rookie running back out of Texas Tech. You might be asking me, though, who the heck is Taj Brooks? Taj Brooks, like I said, rookie running back out of Texas Tech. Not a super high draft pick either. Last day of the draft, last couple rounds of the draft, as a matter of fact. This guy had no clear, massive athleticism skills. He's just a big booming running back who is also really good in the receiving game as well. Now, to be clear, there are no Vegas projections on Taj Brooks. That's how unknown of a name he is, and most people are just not betting on him unless you're betting on him to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. But what's interesting here is when you look at Chase Brown's line, it's actually really weird because you would expect Chase Brown to be in the tier of Bucky Irving maybe of rushing yards, maybe around that 1,000 to 1,100 yard mark. Vegas's total projection for Chase Brown rushing yards wise is 875 rushing yards, 875.5. Something's not adding up here. Something is not adding up because last year Chase Brown ran for 990 yards. And keep in mind, he did not start the first 3 weeks. Zach Moss was starting the first 3 weeks. Zach Moss goes down to injury, then Chase Brown starts in week 4 and does not look back. So he had 990 rushing yards in 2024. Now, the Bengals as a team, they had one of the fewest rushing total amounts in 2024 as a total team at 1,574 rushing yards in 2024. So that means that Chase Brown accounted for basically 2/3 of the team's rushing yard totals in 2024. But what happened this offseason? It's like there's this big gap here, right? Let's say that they run for 1,574 rushing yards again. His line is at 875.5 projected rushing yards. That would mean that he's going to lose volume and lose rushing yards to somebody else. Well, there's been no major changes this offseason, either from a running back perspective or really an offensive line perspective. So it's not like they're going to get a ton worse on the ground, and it's not like they're going to have some big name coming in to challenge Chase Brown. The only real addition to this room is Taj Brooks. Taj Brooks is a guy that I don't think is going to take over. I like Chase Brown. I've been big on Chase Brown all offseason. He's been actually rising up in my rankings. But this is weird because the one weakness last year that you could point to was that he was not great in pass protection. And of course, if you know the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow needs all the protection he can get because the guy's getting clobbered every time he throws the ball and drops back to pass. That's a fact. So they do need a good pass blocking running back. He ranked 37th among all running backs in 2024 in pass blocking according to PFF. That's not a good grade right there. So in all likelihood, they grabbed Taj Brooks to help out with that because Taj Brooks was widely regarded as one of, if not the best overall pass blocking running backs in the 2025 NFL draft class. So what does that mean? Obviously, for fantasy football people, you're not going to think that Taj Brooks is going to come in here and challenge Chase Brown because he's a good pass blocker. Not necessarily saying that. But what I am saying is that there is third down back potential here for Taj Brooks. Because if they want to go ahead and make sure that they're getting a good pass blocking running back there, he could easily take over on third down running back role. That might be a reason why Chase Brown's rushing total is projected a lot lower than I think a lot of people would expect. So Taj Brooks is a guy you could get like literally off the waiver wire. Waiver wire, you could easily pick up Taj Brooks after week 1, after week 2, after week 3 if you start to see this. But in best ball drafts, you should be drafting Taj Brooks at least once at the back of your draft. And of course, if you want to get in on an underdog draft, it is best ball. You do not have to set your lineup every week. It is completely management free during the season. You just watch your team score the best possible score on a weekly basis. So just go down there in their comments and grab the link that's there. You can use code FFN to sign up for Underdog, and they'll match your first deposit 50% up to $1,000 in bonus credits when you use code FFN. And I won $19,000 playing Underdog best ball drafts last year because I was taking the shot on guys like Taj Brooks late in the draft. Now, the next guy I'm going to talk about, this is actually even weirder, Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb of the now Houston Texans, if you did not follow the offseason news of him going over to Houston. Again, there's no projections on Nick Chubb. The only thing you could bet on in Vegas right now with Nick Chubb is if you wanted to bet on the fact that he is going to be the comeback player of the year, the MVP, or the offensive player of the year. There's no stat total projection here for Nick Chubb. But again, something is not adding up with the RB1 in that Houston Texans running back room, with Joe Mixon and his line being at 875.5 rushing yards. It's the same deal as Chase Brown, except what's even weirder is that Joe Mixon had 1,016 rushing yards in 2024. Now, he did miss 3 games, so theoretically, it could have been closer to 1,200 than it was to 1,000 if he played all 17. Now, maybe there's a chance that Vegas is projecting some missed games from Joe Mixon because it's not like he's young. He's been injured in years past. Like, this could easily happen, and that could be the reason why they're projecting him for lower rushing amount. But the Texans' offense in 2024 actually had more rushing yards than the Bengals by 400. 1,909 total rushing yards for the Cincinnati Bengals here. So again, if Joe Mixon hits 875 rushing yards this year, that's not even half of the team's total rushing yard number. What's going to happen, right? Vegas is kind of telling you something. Something is going to happen here. Whether it's Nick Chubb, I don't know. because there is also the option of Woody Marks in the 4th round, who they drafted in the 2025 NFL draft. 4th round draft pick. This guy I don't particularly think is a great player. It took him 5 years in college to become an 1,100 rushing yard guy. I don't know if it's going to be him, but it could be. I mean, D'Amico Ryans said that he loves him in the receiving game. But of course, we know what we're going to get with Nick Chubb. We know the potential of what we could get. Now, I think most people think those days are over. The days of elite Nick Chubb are over, and I would agree with that. But Nick Chubb being on this Houston Texans team with Joe Mixon's rushing projection is where it is in Vegas tells you a bigger story. They don't believe that Joe Mixon is going to be the clear-cut RB1, or he'll get injured, which opens up opportunities for either Nick Chubb or Woody Marks, which, again, both these guys are going undrafted in your redraft leagues. You could easily waiver wire these guys, and there's going to be some big news on the waiver wire on this channel in the next coming weeks, so make sure to stay tuned, or you could go ahead and take one of these guys in best ball drafts. I think either way, it's advisable. Now, getting into our next running back here, this is someone I've been discussing a lot, Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren, I'm telling you guys, is a legitimate breakout / league-winning type of running back this year. Now, his rushing total on Vegas right now, his projections are not like fantastic. They're not going to blow you away. 575.5 rushing yards is Jaylen Warren's total projection. Meanwhile, Caleb Johnson's rushing line is at 800.5 rushing yards. That's not that big of a deal right here, because what you've been hearing in the fantasy community for the most part is that any creator besides me basically is telling you Caleb Johnson is going to be the workhorse in this offense. He's a great value where you're getting him at. And most of the time you're going to get Caleb as the running back 23 on Yahoo, the running back 28 on ESPN. Underdog, he's kind of in the middle there. So it's like theoretically, if he was to be the workhorse, it would be a pretty great value. This is an interesting situation here because, like I said, I've already discussed Jaylen Warren on several different videos this offseason. So first of all, this is a video that I think is the most important video you can find in the offseason, which is my unsuspecting league-winning running backs video. Now, in that video, I go through the criteria that I've used to find previous year's Josh Jacobs surprise league-winning year, Kyron Williams in 2023, Raheem Mostert in 2023. It helped me find Chuba Hubbard last year and Chase Brown last year. Well, guess who fits that criteria to a T? Jaylen freaking Warren does. And this is not just a me thing either. Mike Tomlin said he believes in Jaylen Warren's ability to handle more of the workload as well. He said that before and after they drafted Caleb Johnson. And one thing that definitely we have to remember is that Arthur Smith loves a workhorse running back, wink, wink, because he does not love a workhorse running back. He has been known to screw up running backs, giving Tyler Algier the ball when Bijan Robinson should have been giving it. So even if you think Caleb Johnson's the better runner, I'm telling you right now, he's not going to get the full workload here. From a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and someone who knows these numbers, I'm telling you right now, I know this coaching staff, they're not going to give Caleb Johnson a workhorse role right out of the gate. Jaylen Warren will be heavily involved. And when you compare his price to Caleb Johnson's in these different platforms, running back 32 on Yahoo, running back 33 on ESPN, this is a player that I'm telling you is going to be a really good value. And Vegas is kind of suggesting it with Caleb Johnson's lower rushing total. Now, getting into our next guy right here, I want to discuss Jordan Mason once again as well, because again, I've discussed him a bunch this offseason too. Now, his projection is at 575.5 rushing yards. So again, it's the same type of story as Jaylen Warren. But what's interesting in this one, and I think this is even more interesting than Caleb Johnson, is Aaron Jones' total rushing projection line. It's at 725.5 rushing yards. That's not very much when you factor in a bunch of different things. So again, I've discussed Jordan Mason several times throughout this offseason. I think to me, this is a breakout running back. It is a great value for where you're getting him in fantasy drafts, and we'll get into the price point here in a minute. They signed this guy for a reason this offseason, because obviously they traded for him, but then they immediately turned around and signed him to a multi-year deal in 2025. Now, you could say the same thing about Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones did get a new deal as well. And I'm not saying that Aaron Jones is going to be irrelevant. I think he will be relevant. But Vegas seems to believe that Jordan Mason is going to be more involved, kind of like I have been saying all offseason. So last year, the Vikings had 1,855 rushing yards in total. So again, more than the Cincinnati Bengals had, just about the same amount as the Houston Texans had. Guess how many of those Aaron Jones accounted for? 1,138 rushing yards is what Aaron Jones put up in 2024. So if you're following that here, if Aaron Jones is right at that 725 mark, that's 400 yards being cut off Aaron Jones' workload. And of course, we know they're not going to Ty Chandler. They're going to Jordan Mason if that's the case. I mean, Jordan Mason, I think everybody understands, is going to get goal line work at the very minimum. But Vegas is implying to you that he probably is going to get more workload than just being a purely goal line back. This is going to be a between-the-20s carrier as well. And I've been saying all offseason, I think the reason Aaron Jones is not alone anymore is because they don't want him to be their workhorse guy. They want to give him 15 touches a game to maximize his efficiency. They don't want him to get injured either. Jordan Mason is coming in here to do a lot of dirty work. And I think that makes a big difference. And the reason why Aaron Jones is being projected to have 400 fewer yards on the ground this year. So again, with Jordan Mason, you're getting him several rounds behind where you're getting Aaron Jones in drafts. Aaron Jones, the running back 24 on Yahoo and the running back 25 on ESPN, where Jordan Mason is the running back 34 on Yahoo, 10 spots behind him, and the running back 43 on ESPN. This is a value right here, and Vegas is telling you the same thing. Now, I want to get into my last two guys right here, and I will tell you this. The importance of this video is for you to know that I'm not endorsing all of these picks. I'm endorsing some of them, but I don't know how I feel about these last two. Because Ramondre Stevenson is a guy that Vegas is really screaming at you to not overlook. Ramondre Stevenson's rushing line is at 675.5 rushing yards. Now, again, that's not like it's crazy or anything like that. But Travion Henderson's line in Vegas right now is 700.5 rushing yards. We're talking about like a 25 rushing yard difference between these two guys. And listen, this is wild because I have shifted to pro Travion Henderson very much throughout the whole offseason since he became a New England Patriot. I love the fit. I did think that it was going to be really good because I saw that they wanted to make him their workhorse. But with this line right here, I am not feeling confident that that's going to be the case right out of the gate. So I've taken a bunch of Travion Henderson in drafts. But I got to tell you this, just looking at these two prices, again, pretty big value if you can actually hit on Ramondre. Because Travion's price is at RB28 on Yahoo, RB29 on ESPN, and he's going even higher than that in underdog drafts, which is where I've drafted him a ton. So that makes me even more concerned to see this line, where Ramondre's price is RB38 on Yahoo, RB34 on ESPN. This is weird because I still do prefer Travion Henderson. I do think that especially towards the back half of the season, he will become the emerging talent and the guy who is definitely the better fantasy option. But this is suggesting that Ramondre Stevenson could be way more involved, particularly at the beginning of the year, than Travion Henderson is. So as far as I'm concerned, I do need to start picking Ramondre Stevenson more in best ball because Vegas is seeing something different that I'm not seeing. And I'm not going to say that I'm going to start drafting Ramondre Stevenson in my redraft leagues, but definitely in best ball, I'm going to be taking more shots on him. And the last guy that I want to get into here is even wilder, Tank Bixby. Tank Bixby's rushing line is 650.5 yards. Again, not a lot, but look at Travis Etienne's. It is at 475.5 rushing yards. That's wild. Like literally, I'm actually still shocked just reading it again. Because I've been all in on Etienne all offseason. I have been drafting a ton of him on underdog from the get-go. I've got so many shares of Etienne, I am feeling really not good about it right now. Because I've completely overlooked Tank at the same time. And Tank Bixby is going like 3 rounds behind Travis Etienne in most formats, if not even more. Because I want people to understand this. Like Vegas is suggesting that Travis Etienne could be borderline irrelevant at 475.5 rushing yards. I mean, that's like borderline irrelevancy in fantasy football that Vegas is suggesting that he could be. This could be a pretty huge value if this is actually Tank Bixby's year. Because, again, with Travis Etienne, RB35 on Yahoo, RB36 on ESPN. Tank Bixby, RB41 on Yahoo and on ESPN. Like, this is crazy to me. So with Tank Bixby, I'm definitely going to take more of him in best ball. Again, I'm not saying that you should make sure you grab Tank Bixby in your redraft league, but I will tell you this. This is a big shock to me because not only is he favored above Travis Etienne line is so small that they're suggesting he could be borderline irrelevant, and Tank Bixby will be the primary back in this backfield. Take what you will from it, but I will tell you this, Tank Bixby needs to be on your radar. So let me know what your biggest takeaway is from all this Vegas information I dropped today. Let me know if you liked the video style. And if you want to see the best draft strategy for 2025 fantasy football that will work from all different picks, click on this video right here.